Hello explorers, thanks for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. If you are joining for the first time, I appreciate your time as always. It is important that there is huge development across the region. If you want to know why African countries at this moment are paying closer attention in terms of their security, it's as a result that they have come to the realization that the geostrategic partners can no longer step up to the plate to defend the continent of Africa when it comes to security. Why am I saying this? We've seen events across the Sahel, how France, Operation Barkhane collapse, look at Operation Serval collapse, and the United States of America's role in West Africa, how the US was kicked out from the country of Niger. We have a lot to cover today, folks. Make no mistake, based on news information coming from the continent of Africa, especially in West Africa, the United States of America is moving around, begging, looking for a place to put its military base. Like I said, African countries are open for partnership, but some of these relationships have been condescending, paternalistic, and imposition, and giving more instructive approach in terms of their relationship. African nations have pushed back. More importantly, the United States of America is beginning to realize that the continent of Africa has had enough in terms of military engagement, which to an extent African countries are looking for open business relationships that have some significant contribution. Roads, bridges, ports, you name the rest. This is important. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because a number of countries across West Africa do not at this time still refuse to allow the United States of America to build a new military base in that particular region. If you remember when Niger kicked out the United States of America, that particular incident is not going to go anywhere soon. The 100 million US drone base was the city of Ouagadougou in the country of Niger. That particular base that was being used for reconnaissance mission across the region. To an extent, experts argue that it didn't pay any particular fruit. If you look at that particular region, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger put together over 5,000 strongman troops to tackle the challenges because they have realized that the geostrategic partners like the United States of America is not of their own interest at the moment. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because experts across the region have questioned if the US is a true partner in terms of security arrangement. African nations and governments and also expert consultants, security analysts have come to the point where they have realized that the nations themselves must step up to the plate and start protecting their countries from across the region. Let's play this clip.
Until its eventual closure in August last year, the $110 million U.S. Airbase 201 in the Nigerian desert town of Agadez was the central hub of U.S. counterterrorism operations, not just in Niger, but across the Sahel. But things changed dramatically following the military takeover in the country in July 2023. The new military regime ordered the airbase shut and American troops to withdraw as it switched military cooperation to Russia. Earlier, the regime had also terminated its military cooperation with its colonial ruler France and evicted its troops as well.
The pointer is that people just want to be free. They want all these foreign forces that have occupied African land for a long time to leave. But you also then ask yourself, even while they were here, how much good really did they do? If you look at the Boko Haram insurgency, you look at the jihadist jihadist activities in Chad, and in Niger and in Mali. How much did the presence of these foreign forces help the nations to curtail them?
Indeed, despite the presence of Western forces in the region, militant attacks in the Sahel continue, raising a wave of public discontent in countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. But those attacks have not abated, even after the withdrawal of Western troops.
I don't think it will make any difference. The bandits, jihadists, terrorists will continue to expand. And it is left for the African countries at this time to, look inwards and then address those root causes that are causing this problem. because that is basically what it should have even been when AFRICOM was there. So without solving those problems, jihadists will still have a fertile recruitment ground, and they will also have free passages in the porous borders that exist in all the West African countries.
Since it shut down its bases in Niger, the U.S. Africa Command has not been able to secure a space for the re-establishment of a new base elsewhere in the West African sub-region. Public sentiment in the region is simply against the idea.
The relationship with regards to the United States of America struggling across the continent of Africa to look for new military bases did not come overnight. Let's go back to a couple of years ago when the United States of America considered the country of Niger, as the former United States of America Secretary of State Mr. Antony Blinken once referred to Niger as the model of democracy, the model of great partnership. How did that work out? Go back to history, considering the strategic relationship with one of the United States of America's partner, France, that engaged Niger from the paternalistic point of view, considering the exploitation of uranium in the country of Niger. Make no mistake, that particular relationship didn't go well. Niger was facing economic challenges, lack of hospitals, lack of health care, infrastructure. If you look at those challenges, what happened in Niger is not a business at the moment. But if you look at what happened at the time when the former leader, Mr. Bazoum, was overthrown in that country, I'm not saying that the military way is the way to go, but it comes to a point where African nations are facing incredible challenges and their partners like the United States of America lack the fundamentals in understanding how these nations across the region have been engaged in a colonial relationship and contract that was not beneficial to them. But what did the United States do? The United States of America sent a delegation to the country of Niger. Niger complained that this delegation composition was not, or I would say, below par as compared to what Niger expected. And Niger complained that the United States was so paternalistic, condescending in terms of that engagement. And for that reason, Niger felt as if the United States of America is giving them instructions on how to run their country, how to partner, who they should work with, who they shouldn't work with. This is the big problem in the geopolitical environment. And Niger came out clear, without hesitation, and perceiving their relationship with the United States of America, which in that particular moment was not on a win-win scale. For that particular reason, the leader of the nation of Niger, Mr. Nchiani, went ahead and gave the instruction, and the spokesperson of Niger came out clear. Colonel Abdurrahman Dramane came out and lashed out to the United States of America and told the US that this partnership is not going to work and we are severing ties at this moment. In that regard, he never missed his word. He came out clear and gave his own perspective based on his own country's own viewpoint in terms of their partnership and said this.
The US presence on the territory of the Republic of Niger is illegal and violates all the constitutional and democratic rules which would require the sovereign people, in particular through its elected representatives, to be consulted on the installation of a foreign army on its territory.
In the course of that particular situation, the United States of America responded based on the previous Secretary of State, Mr. Antony Blinken, who came out clear and threatened Niger openly and said this.
He said that he had spoken to President Bazoum on the phone and emphasized the significance of the relationship between the US and Niger.
Our economic and security partnership with Niger, which is significant, hundreds of millions of dollars, depends on the continuation of the democratic governance and constitutional order that has been disrupted by the actions in the last few days.
The problems across the region at this particular time gives you an indication that the continent of Africa is taking stock of their relationship from the security standpoint. African nations are tired of security partnerships that are not meant for win-win collaboration. And the United States of America will continue to struggle in the region based on experts' own information. At this time, a lot of experts across the continent of Africa perceive the US's presence as unfruitful and does not yield any particular positive aspect based on their own analysis. Let's roll this clip.
So they've actually outlived their welcome in this part of the world because they have not really benefited are the countries of West Africa. They were not really a deterrent force to the jihadists. Their presence here was not really for your own protection or the protection or security of West Africa. It was for their own interest. They were here for their own national military interest.
But experts say it's unlikely the Americans are gone for good from the region. Already, there are talks between the U.S. government and Morocco over the possibility of moving the U.S. AFRICOM to the North African nation, and from there, still be able to keep a watchful eye on extremist activities in the Sahel.
They are still looking for conducive areas where they can plant their base, because those bases, normally in global politics, I think are very, very important for them, where they can, exercise their influence. So as long as this is concerned, they will continue looking.
The U.S. State Department believes that maintaining military bases in African countries enables Washington to monitor armed groups and respond to growing threats of armed violence before it reaches its doorstep. The shrinking military influence of Washington in West Africa will now make that task even more difficult. DG Badimasi, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
It is important to note that the continent of Africa at this time is looking for real partnership. Africa, make no mistake, does have some security challenges that are vital in terms of its survival. However, like I said always, experts argue that if African nations themselves cannot step up to the plate and take full control, absolute security engagement to look or map out their borders and basically sit on the throne and to assume full control and instill that confidence in their nationals, then if the partners withdraw, what will be the continent's own perspective? For that reason, experts argue the United States and other collaborators do not sit in the continent of Africa in terms of security. They are there to serve their own individual interests. Africa is at a crossroad at the moment. For that particular reason, the continent of Africa is always open to work with partners. But the biggest problem that the United States of America faces is when the US always come in clear and start giving instruction, trying to be paternalistic, giving direction on how this country should work. The United States of America and other geopolitical partners fail to understand the dynamics, especially in the Sahel. These nations have been through a colonial relationship that hasn't paid them well. And more importantly, they are trying to sever that collaboration and to gain some particular freedom. The formation of the Alliance of the Sahelian State is not something that happened overnight. It's been brewing for quite some time. And more importantly, the colonial regional organization, ECOWAS, has not lived up to its expectation. ECOWAS has been so disappointing in terms of its engagement. It has failed to innovate. It has failed to realize the modern threat and challenges that West African countries are facing. In that regard, the countries across the region, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, saw that for them to stand up to the challenges they are facing, they have to leave the regional organization, which is so very tied to its Western partners that to an extent provide funding and also to an extent financing. This is a big problem in the continent of Africa at the moment. That's the reason why the United States of America to an extent has moved, working alongside other partners, engaging the country of Ivory Coast, looking for other places to put in military bases. This is a bigger problem. Africa is open to working with everyone, but a condescending approach is something that's never gonna work. I want to thank you for watching. That is the reason why the United States of America is finding it so difficult to engage the continent of Africa, to have new places for military bases. It's a message being sent to the United States of America that this aspect of partnership that is based on your own individual direction is something that's never going to work in the continent of Africa. The continent of Africa has risen, is asking some genuine questions, is looking for genuine partners. Africa understands its security challenges. It's important that this particular aspect will be settled so information can be spread, businesses can come, African nationals can move closely to each other and also carry out their activities. But they are also looking for technological advancement, innovation in terms of their particular security arrangement. But if partners come into their country to impose and lecture them, that's where the problem will be. The continent of Africa is going through an amazing period at the moment. as geopolitical partners that once were considered to be strategic have failed them so far. The United States of America has taken a back seat. The US does not have that particular gravitas and that confidence. The United States of America has lost its confidence and has broken the trust in the continent of Africa at the moment. The US can no longer be that partner that African nations can say that we have a partner. The US not only called aid, it pushed South Africa, Egypt, and also Djibouti on the other side, move the continent of Africa in a confused state at the moment. African nations can no longer count on the United States of America's own security and as a genuine partner in terms of their development. This is evidence across the continent of Africa. That's why the United States of America is finding it difficult to have a military base or any nation that can provide them a base, to provide them land to build their military base. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Smash the like button and have a good day. Bye-bye.